Okay, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon from Salzburg. Good morning or good evening to some of you. You're very welcome to the fourth symposium, Mikrotöne, Small is Beautiful.
Okay.
The International Ecmelic Society was today founded 40 years and 2 weeks ago by Franz Richter and Rolf Medel. Between 1985 and 1991, they organized the biannual symposium Mikrotöne in collaboration with the Mozarteum Academy Salzburg. Besides, they organized the Naturton Symposia in 1989. In 1992, in collaboration with the Jahrhundertewende Gesellschaft Heidelberg. I arrived in Salzburg and became a member of the society in 2006. I arrived in 2004. In 2007, I attended the Symposium Oriental-Occidental Accord in Salzburg, organized by my colleague besides me, Johannes Kochi. In 2015, I understood that it was time for the next generation to continue this important work to promote the propagation of microtonal music by organizing concerts, lectures, and symposium by means of publication and printing of ecmelic compositions, as well as by supporting the research work on microtonality and the 72 ecmelic system, and to maintain connections to other microtonal institutions and people involved with microtonal music around the world. With the title of our symposium, after a quotation by the Alternative Nobel Prize from Salzburg, Leopold Kohr, we evoke the beauty which small differences can bring to music. We continue to serve today as a platform for the world of microtonal music. I have the pleasure, some of you know already, I have to send them still. I have the pleasure to present Mikrotöne, Small is Beautiful, Volume 3, published by Mackinger Verlag in Austria, and it's a collection of articles presented at the last symposium in 2019. And so we have here all the books. We have the one from the second symposium, Mikrotöne, Small is Beautiful, and of course also the first one. So I would like, although for online for reasons we all know, I am very happy to see you all and to be about to start a new edition of Mikrotöne, Small is Beautiful, which will host over 40 presentations by experts from 20 countries. I would like to thank all of you for your contributions to the symposium, for showing here your work involving microtonal music. I would like to thank all my colleagues for their work, Thomas Richter in a special way for his support, the University Mozarteum for their collaboration, and Maria Hertz for her special support, and the company co-working for the conference room where we are at the moment. Dear participants, dear attendees, dear colleagues, dear friends, welcome to Mikrotöne, Small is Beautiful.
And hello and welcome to our symposium. I'm very glad that Augustine took over this difficult task to organize and prepare all this, and well, thank you for your support.
My pleasure to be with everyone. Okay, so I think just 1 minute before time, we can start with the first block, with the first conferences of our new edition of the symposium, and we are about to start with Old and New Objects in Quarter-Tone Universe by Franck Jedrzejewski. I hope I pronounced the name in the proper way. Franck Jedrzejewski is a mathematician and doctor in philosophy and musicology. He has published over a dozen titles, including an ontology of musicology. He has published, an ontology of categories, ontology of categories in 2011. Research in music theory, mathematical theory of music, looking at numbers in 2013 with composer Tom Johnson, and in the history of science and mathematics, aleatory models and probabilistic physics. A second edition of his Dictionnaire des Musiques Microtonales 2004 was recently published, the second edition in 2014. His research is highly transdisciplinary: music, philosophy, mathematics, categories, atonality, Russian avant-garde music. He currently teaches at Université de Paris Sud and the INCTN, the National Institute for Nuclear Science and Technology. Please, ladies and gentlemen, welcome Franck Jedrzejewski.
Thank you. Do you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
We don't see you.
You don't see me, because I see. I don't.
I can see you, Franck.
We
Okay.
see.
Okay. So
I will
okay.
unmute myself.
So my talk is about quarter-tone music and some object in quarter-tones, but you will realize that we can apply all the concept which we present to an EDO, equal division of octave. So I will try to share my screen.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, do you see my screen?
Yes, perfect. Great.
And here, do you always see my screen?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So, as I told you, I will speak about old and new objects. So the two, maybe the two or three first objects are old, and the two others are quite new. So the first object is the mode of limited transposition set up by Olivier Messiaen in usual temperament, and I will speak about this mode, but in a quarter-tone universe. So the second object is mode of progressive transposition. Maybe you don't know this because it has been published by just in one paper by Alain Louvier. Maybe you know Alain Louvier is a French composer who has been head of the National Conservatory of Paris. And Alain Louvier tried to find a new concept which is very close from modes of limited transposition of Messiaen, but it's rather different. So we'll speak about that. And this concept of mode of progressive transposition can be used also to define a kind of diatonicity, so we can define generalized diatonic scales. And after that, I will speak about the fourth object, which is the homometric scale, what we call homometric scale. And homometric scales are known by Alan Forte, the musicologist and theorist American Alan Forte, which is homometry is known as the relation. And last, I will speak about combinatorial design, and I will show you how to use this combinatorial design and what we have done with minimalist composer Tom Johnson. We do not use microtones, but of course, combinatorial design and block design can be used in microtone universe. So the first one is the Messiaen sets of limited transposition. In the usual temperament, you know what is a set of limited transposition is, for example, the triton. The triton C F sharp, which can be transposed only 6 times and not 12 times, because when we try to build a triton on F sharp, we get F sharp C, which is the same as C F sharp. So there are only 6 elements, 6 pitch class sets of triton. So the famous also is the chord of diminished 7. It is well known because it's a chord which is very famous because you can use it to modulate in different tones. So now the problem is, can we build sets of limited transposition in a quadratone system? So before I will show you the sets of limited transposition in the 12-tone set, 12-tone temperament, and class by from top to bottom. There are the number of transpositions. So here, 1 transposition for the chromatic scale. So 2 transposition for the Walton scale, so etc. 3 transposition, 4 and 6 transposition on the last line. And from left to right, you have the number of notes of the set increase. Okay, and so the first are chords, the second elements here are modes, defective modes, which have been rejected by Olivier Messiaen because they are included in what Messiaen what we call now Messiaen's mode. So we can compute and see how many modes are there. So there are, in fact, up to transposition 16 mode in the usual temperament. So now you can find a nice formula to enumerate these sets of limited transposition in any temperament. So if you look at the 24 IDO, so you see on the last column that there is 381 sets of limited transposition up to transposition. Okay, so we can do the same thing with the formula above for all n-tone equal temperament. So if you look at the 96 temperament, you see that you have up to transposition an astronomical number of chords and also astronomical very, very huge number of sets of limited transposition in this if you use 16th tone. Okay, so now I will try to explain what is sets of progressive transposition. So a set of progressive transposition is just a scale which have only one common note if you transpose it to a degree, for example, V. V is a number in the usual temperament is the fifth, but you can imagine that you can transpose it in other transposition. So what I've done, Alain Louvier, for example, he used one scale, which is this scales, which has 3 microtones. So on A, on D, and on E. And when you transpose it, you see that you have just one common note with the other. It's the same when you take the major C major, and if you transpose C major a fifth up, you have G major, and from C major and G major, you have just one note in common, which is the F sharp. No, sorry. Just one note which is different. One note different. Sorry. One note different, which is F sharp. Here you have just one note which is different. All the other notes are the same. Okay. So if you look at this address on YouTube, you can listen to Canto di Natale, directed by Alain Louvier. So Alain Louvier, I use some scales of progressive transposition, and if you look at an analytical research, you can find other scales. For example, here a 12-note scale, which have index 5, which means that you must transpose it 5 quarter-tones up to get the same scales, but with one note different. Or you also have a 13-note scale, which are given here, and also many other scales. So now we can use this to define microdiatonicity, and the theoretical questions are: what is a diatonicity scale in n-tone system for n greater than 12, of course? What is a major scale in this system? Why keyboards have 5 black keys and 7 white keys? How many microtonal scales and modes are there? What are modes of limited transposition in the n-tone system? And what are modes of progressive transposition? Is just the 2 questions that I've just evoked for quarter-tone system. And we can also find a new definition of what could be a diatonic scale in the n-tone system. And it was in fact set up by Ivan Vishnegradsky. Ivan Vishnegradsky was a Russian born and composer which arrived in Paris just before the Russian Revolution, and he composed prelude, 24 prelude, and in his prelude he used a scale and he called the transposition position, not transposition, but position. For example, on the bottom you see the position C. And he used this scale, which he derived this scale by connected two heptacords, and he derived these scales from the Walton scale. And these scales can, in fact, for example, you can listen to the 24 preludes at this address of YouTube. So this prelude is not the first one, but you can see, you can have listened to it at 4 minutes. So Vyshnegradsky, in fact, set up what is diatonicity for 24 Ido. So now we would like to have a definition of a diatonic scale, and if you look at the literature, you will see that there are many definitions of around diatonicity. And the first concept is the well-formed scale, and around well-formed scale you can find also maximally even sets, the Mihail property, and the concept of distributionally even or generated scale or deep scale, etc. So I don't go into details, but people who look at this question of generalized diatonic scales, in fact, find this result, that is, if A is maximally even in n-tone equal temperament, then n must be a multiple of 4, and n of the form n equal to k minus 1. So k is the number of notes in the scale. So it's a very short result, because the definition of diatonicity is not suited for all chromatic universe. So I think that we need another definition of diatonicity. So here I define what could be a diatonic scale with what I call a TP set, that means a transposition progressive set X of k element, which can be defined, and we can have a new definition of microtonic scale. So here is a list depending of n of different microdiatonic scale with the previous definition. Okay, so now I would like to consider a fourth object, which is homometric sets. Homometric sets is two sets, A and B, such that they have the same interval content. So, for example, if you consider here the two sets 0345 and 0457 in the eighth tone equal temperament, you will see that on the left figure you get the same interval as on the right figure. You have two interval of 1 step, here between 3 and 4 and 4 and 5, and on the right figure between 0 and 7 and between 4 and 5. So you have only one 2-step, which is between 3 and 5, and here between 5 and 7 on the right. So you have the same interval content. So, of course, if you take a set, if you take a set A, which is, and look at the transposition of A or at the inversion of A, you always have the same interval content. But here, we want sets that are not trivially Z related. So we want sets that are not the transposition or the inversion of each other. So here the two sets 0, 3, 4, 5 and 0, 4, 5, 7 are non-trivial sets which are Z related. So the question is, how many sets can we form, and can we have an algorithm of to generate homometric sets? And this question is in fact open, and but with a computer you can find all in the quaterton system, you can find all the homometric sets, and you will see that, for example, we get here the K means, the K on the first line means the number of notes in the set. So sets of 4 notes, there are three pairs, homometric non-trivial pairs, okay, and 30 pairs of 5 notes, etc. But there is a, a curious phenomena which appears from 18, which has been remarked by musicologist David Lewin. That is that if you go up to 16, you will find triplets or quadruplets, etc. So, for example, in the 24 Ido, you have a triplet of 5 notes. So each of these sets are Z-related, so they have the same interval contents. That means that when you play them as chord, they sound very similarly, and you can use not only this set, but also all their transposition and all their inversion. So you have a huge panel of sets that have the same, quite the same sound. So, and you can use these to compose. So there is also a sextuplet of 7 notes and an octuplet of 9 notes. And what is very, very strange is that you have a dodecuplet of 12 notes that is quite scarce, and with these 12 sets, these 12 sets and all their transposition and all their inversion have the same interval vector contents. So this was used by a French composer. I have worked with Stéphane de Girondeau, a French composer, and you can see on YouTube a partition score, and which is called Homometric Attractors, and Homometric Attractors 2, and he used these homometric sets to compose music. So I would like to finish my talk with a block design. A block design, as you see at the bottom, are blocks. So 013, 026, the column are the blocks, and these blocks can be interpreted as notes or rhythm, and these blocks have a curious property, that is, if you take any pairs, for example, 0, 1, and 0, 1 appears exactly once. So because it's the block design has parameter n, k, m. N is the number of n tone equal temperament. K is the number of notes in the block, and m, small m, is the number of times when two numbers appears together. So in the Fano plane, the Fano plane has m equal 1, and this means that pairs appears only once. So the pairs 0, 1 is only on the first block, the pair 0, 3 is only on the second block, the pair 0, 3 is on the first block, 0, 4 on the third block, 0, 5 on the third block, and 0, 6 on the second block, and only in one. And you can do that with all pairs. You will see that all pairs appears only once. So you can use these blocks as chords or as what you want. So it has been done by Tom Jensen. This is a drawing of Tom Jensen, a minimalist composer, a student of Alan Forte and also of Morten Feldman. And Tom Jensen has composed Kirkman Ladies with the block design 1531. Here is a drawing showing the relation with the Fano plane of each blocks. Blocks are of length 3, but we can have blocks of length what you want. So, and what are, for example, if in the quatertone universe we can find some blocks design, but there are many blocks. For example, the design 2432 has 194 blocks, and here I show detailed 82 blocks of the detail of the block 2465, and you see that in this block design, each pairs appear 5 times because m equals 5. So, for example, 0, 1 appear here once, and here 2, 3, 4, and the last one is here 0, 1, 4, 8, 10, 13. So they appear only 5 times, and you can do that for each pairs. So this is the block designs are nice structures for composers. So to finish my talk, I will give you some reference around microtonality. So if you want if you read French, you can look at my dictionary of microtonal music, which have a very huge bibliography. So thank you for your attention. So I cannot hear you.
Okay, no, sorry. Thank you very much for your fantastic lecture. It's personally also amazing for me. I know many of your writings. I have, of course, the Dictionary of Microtonal Music at home, and it's the first time I have the possibility to attend one of your lectures. So it's really fantastic to have this opportunity. And
so I would like to thank the Augustine and the organizer for inviting me, and I could not stay today because I have a train to catch. But I hope I will connect it tomorrow.
Yeah. Do you have 10 minutes for some questions?
Yes,
I'm
of course.
sure some. Yes. Oh, okay. Yeah, that would be great. I hope the other participants also can hear me. I'd like to ask if there's in the round any questions for Mr. Jedrzejewski. Did I say your name correctly?
Yes, it's not the pronunciation is not fixed. So in French it's Jedrzejewski, in Polish it's Jedrzejewski. So it's very so you say as you want.
I try to practice actually. You have any questions, Johannes?
No. It's quite clear, or a lot of numbers and algorithms, and I should say.
So I will send you the slides so you can.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I took some pictures and I had some ideas as you were presenting all these systems, because I never developed any system within my 36 system, which I normally use for microtonal compositions. And it's amazing that for chord possibilities, I never thought about it, nearly 2,000 million possibilities of chord constructions. Of course, then in the guitar, it's very limited because of how the guitar is constructed, but I'm having some ideas how to try out a few things, yeah. I mean, it was really inspiring.
Yeah, yes, of course, but some chords are very close, so we have to invent another classification to merge some chords together and to reduce. I think if I will be a composer, that's what I do.
Mm-hmm. And I read now that Hans Gunther has a question. Can you directly speak?
Yes, I can directly speak. No, I have no question because I think it was quite clear, and but I'm not a mathematician, so I have to dive in after. Thank you that you are sharing your slides, and of course this is an interesting question to see what is the properties, what we can name diatonic, and what is diatonicity and chromaticity in microtonal. I think for me personally, there is not this unique answer. I think there is a lot of answers and these different probabilities like Myhill and moment of symmetry and whatever plays an important role for a deeper understanding of these things. And I would simply to thank you. I read your paper about the Z-related classes, and that was a basic for me to make the speech what I have made 2 years ago here in Salzburg, and what I was then searching all the numbers for NEDO systems between 13 and 24 and establish the huge amounts of tables, because that is that material what we want as composers, that we can say, okay, here this is a group what is in pitch class, set class, what is interesting. I want to grab it and make a composition from that. Thank you, Franck, to see you in this conference now in person.
Thank you for your comment. I think you have right that maybe there are many approach of diatonicity, and we can think of many several scales, several diatonic scales in one EDO and EDO, but the research that I try to do is to be very close to the diatonicity, which is in the 12-tone system, and I would like to be very close of that. So I think it was a good hypothesis to try to find only one diatonic scale. But I understand that if you change the definition, you will have others diatonic scales.
For instance, if you want to work with odd n EDO scales, then of course you have already a different situation, because the probabilities what are related to even numbers, they are not anymore valid for that. And so I have worked a lot with the Bol-Pierce scale, so 13 pitches in a circle, and there it seems for me that the situation is a bit different, and it's not everything 100% comparable, I think.
Okay. Thank you.
Any more questions?
Augustine, from me, maybe?
One
One question for Franck. Diatonicity. Diatonicity is a big, wonderful question. I would like to ask Franck, is it this idea of Gestalt in lines, maybe also in harmonicity, that you are interested in, so that we filter as a listener somehow to refer to reoccurring Gestalten in a kind of diatonicity? It's very interesting that you are referring so very much on that, since you seem to be mainly a mathematician, but your big interest, at least in this talk now, was diatonicity. What can be done with filtering systems? Is this view towards you, my view, correct, that this is one of your main interests, diatonicity?
So you are perfectly right. My main interest is the diatonicity, but it's more a philosophical concept, and here I have just tried to approach diatonicity with a mathematical resource. So now, if I have to think about diatonicity, I think I will leave the mathematical approach to think really diatonicity, and I think it will be another thing. So, but I have no time to develop diatonicity. I'm not sure that I am not completely clear with what could be diatonicity or what is diatonicity. So thank you, Manfred, for your remark.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was really interesting that at the end your main interest is the diatonicity.
Yes, of course.
And why is it? Because of mathematics? I'm trying to imagine the answer. Why exactly through mathematics? Why exactly? Why do you have so your interest is diatonicity because of mathematics? I didn't understand this completely.
I think it's an historical flux because American theorists have developed well-formed scales and maximally even sets and so on, and so I will and they use more mathematics concept than philosophical concepts. So I will in this mood, and I try to, in this flux, I try to find a new definition of diatonicity, because we cannot have only a definition of a diatonic scale for only multiple of when n is a multiple of 4. So so maybe diatonicity, a diatonic scale does not exist. If diatonic scale do not exist in some temperament, why not? And so the first approach will be a mathematical approach, and of course, so maybe we have to distinguish what are diatonic scales and what is diatonicity, because it's two different concepts.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for your work, and thank you for sharing it with us.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to ask if, we still have 5 minutes actually. Any more questions from anyone? Okay, we still have. And are there the references? I couldn't, I tried, Franck, I tried to take some pictures for me, just with the phone. I couldn't catch the references, the bibliography.
Yes.
Is there a possibility that we can read a little bit further about this concept of tonicity? Because there were a few references from yourself. My eyes, the computer is now exactly in a point where without glasses, I don't see, without glasses, I don't see. So I have to be moving now with glasses or like this, and I couldn't catch it, I'm sorry. So or maybe you can show this again, the references at the end of your lecture, please.
Yeah.
In case somebody, that's very nice. So yes. So
here they are. So
here I go.
In a mathematical theory of music, which is a book that I publish in English, there is a. I speak also about diatonicity, but I think that I have. It's an old writing, so I have evolved from this. And now all the concepts are more, but it is in French, in the book called Hétérotopie musicale. And
this is quite new. Last year, with the same edition, Herman. Okay.
Herman, so it's easy to find it in Paris.
Yes.
Also. Yeah. And but it is in French, as you know.
I know Spanish. I can't really speak French. I can understand some words, but really a little bit easier, actually. A little bit, yes.
So it is I think my best book, because it's also the more new.
Yes. Wow. Okay, yes, by Johnson.
So and now we have also done this year some writing around Christian Huygens, which is called Writing on Music and Sound. The first of the list. It's a new book, and there is some text of Christian Huygens, but also a huge bibliography, and also I wrote some chapter on the 31 Ido used today by a composer of today.
Yes.
So it's also interesting, but not for quarter tones. So, but for 31 tones music, it's interesting, I think.
Yes. Thank you very much for your work. It's great to get this fantastic news from you and about this bibliography. I'm very much looking forward to try to understand them, even though it's in French for me. But I'm sure I will manage to understand. Any more questions from the group? Okay, otherwise, thank you very much, Franck Jedrzejewski. And we will continue to the second presentation by composer Yue Xiao. I hope I'm also pronouncing the name properly. And it's the title is called Xiaoyong Chen's Diary 5, an exploration of quarter-tone compositional techniques. Mrs. Yue Xiao is a student at the Sichuan Conservatory of Music in Chengdu, majoring in music education. She has also majored in composition and technical theory of composition. Her scientific research achievements, 2018 SCCM annual research project on the integration of modern compositional techniques and elements of Beijing opera. The paper was published in Yellow River Sound, number 8 in 2020. 2019 SCCM annual research project, the integration of modern composition techniques and the relation between poetry and music of contemporary art songs. Published in Yellow River Sound, number 15, 2020. In 2019, SCCM annual research project, the transformation of timbre between non-extending instruments and extending instruments, published in Yellow River Sound, number 15, 2021. 2019, exploring the polyphonic techniques of pentatonic longitudinalization was selected, for the commemoration of the 40th anniversary of the first Harmonic Symposium in 2019, 2020, and 2021. A study on the relation between pitch structure and evolution of musical form, Schoenberg's Das Buch der Hängenden Garten, as an example, won the Outstanding Essay Award at the Essay Collection and Competition. So please, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Mrs. Yue Xiao. Hello, good evening, Yue. Yes,
hello,
everything perfect.
We hear you. Pleasant evening to each and everyone. My name is Yue Xiao, in Chinese name Yue Xiao. I am a postgraduate student from Sichuan Conservatory of Music, and my major is composition theory. Today, I will do my presentation about Xiaoyong Chen's Diary 5, an exploration of quarter-tone compositional techniques. Okay, Professor Xiaoyong Chen composed the work Diary 5, a 5-movement solo miniature for 2 pianos with a quarter-tone difference in their timings, performed by a single pianist. The composer himself explained the work as follows. Diary is my main purpose to capture inspiration, to record my feelings and the sound from my musical version. 1, 2, 3, which I use piano, and version 4, which I use organ. And finally form a short solo fragment, which will be published and printed at the concert performance works. Since it is a record of inspiration, it means that these pieces serve as basic materials for later use in compositions ranging from chamber music to orchestras. The work was completed in 2030 and permanent in Hamburg, Germany. It is included in the new album Imaginative Reflections, together with other work in the genre Wandering Illusion, Imaginative Reflection, and Evropa. This score is published by the International Music Collaborative, Skorsky, Hamburg, Germany, in 2018, and the record is distributed worldwide by the Colino, Germany. In May 2018, he won the Best Record of the section Contemporary Music and the Best Art Award in the second quarter of the German Record Critics Award, which fully demonstrates the artistic value of this work. The work has 5 movements, like the pictures, like the slide shows. In terms of performance, a performer played 2 pianos at the same time, so the performer often needs to play the piano with one hand. Therefore, certain limitations during performance naturally become the first issue that composers need to consider. Because of this, the composer has carried on the unique conception and design in many aspects, such as pitch design, the voice parts application, the tone range, and so on. This is content. Firstly, we will talk about the method and the notation of the quarter tone. The work Diary 5 was composed for 2 pianos with quarter tone differences in their timings. One of the piano is set to the standard tone A1 to 452.19 Hz, which is quarter tone higher than the normal piano setting. As a result, the microtone differences between the 2 pianos due to the different set strings become the most direct manifestation of how microtonality is achieved. Microtonal phenomena do not occur when 2 pianos are playing independently, but they become permanent when 2 pianos collide in the longitudinal direction. Obviously, this kind of microtone differences bring the acoustic effect, which cannot be achieved in the 12-tone equal temperament. The longitudinal conclusion of the 2 pianos. The intricate interweaving of multiple voices fills in a complex polyphonic wave of chaos, forming another pitch system and the sound material, the 24-tone equal temperament, which can also be described as the effect of the longitudinal composite of 2 12-tone equal temperament that differ by quarter tone in time and space. It can be seen that the composer has made a qualitative leap by giving a new definition to pitch relations and sound corners with only a little skill in setting strings. Okay, the score of the work shows that the 2 pianos are notated in a 2-piano performance, with the first piano is placed at the top of the normal tuning, and the second piano is located at the bottom with the high quarter tone tuning. And it should be noted that in the 4th movement, the composer designed the work as the 2 parts, like the picture shows, and the performers played 1 part each of the 2 pianos. The notation was changed from the original double piano notation to ground staff. On the next slide, I will be discussing about notation of quarter tones. Usually, there are various ways of noting quarter notes in musical forms. For example, numerical auxiliary markers. Markers based on rising and falling signs, like the picture shows. by unconventional notes, headers, or special auxiliary markers, and so on. Oh, how is B so? Okay. In the work diary 5, the notation method used by the composers is quarter-tone notation in vector notation. That is, a combination of arrows and the basic rising and falling signs used to express quarter-tones. The upward pointing arrows indicates a quarter-tone rise, while the reverse indicates a quarter-tone fall, as shown in this example. The notation and marking illustrate that is this fragment. The pitches presented in sequence are flat D, C, D, B, flat D, shape A and A in ascending quarter notes. It is easy to see from the examples that the composers has standardized and realized the notation of the quarter notes by changing the temporary diacritics of notation, which is by adding small arrows upwards. For the overview of the structure of the work diary 5 is performed with one person playing two pianos with a quarter-tone difference at the same time, which means that the 88 individual pitches of the one piano are increased to 176 individual pitches, making the pitch possibilities much broader. In the 5 movements of the diary 5, in movements 1, 2, 3, the piano performance focused on mainly on the low range. And for movement 4 and 5, it enters the high range, which shows the composer's layout and design conception in terms of the sound range of the work. To explain further, let me show the 5 movements parts, beginning with the 1 movement. There are 28 bars consisting of 3 parts: the presentation, the movement, the exit. The structure is divided as this follows. And the presentation section, the 4 voices are stayed in sequence. The 2 pianos form an imitative relationship, and the piano forms a micropolyphony relationship entirely. Movement section. Based on the previous section, the pitch materials is superimposed, maintaining the imitative relationship between the 2 pianos as well as the internal micropolyphony relationship. Exit section. All material gradually exits and transforms into a stationary form in a chord pattern. The second movement, there are 9 bars, very concise, compact, and coherent. Formation of the accents of the work through the imitation, rhythm canon, and the limited time. In terms of rhythm, it takes 4 beats as the basic pattern and forms a complex rhythmic subdivision within it, using the interweaving of multiple voices to blur the original material accents and create an ethereal acoustic effect. The third movement are totally 12 bars through the superposition and the decrescendo of pitch materials, makes the overall work embodies the process of entering, gathering, dissipating. The pitch materials of the 4 voices have the formal characteristics of synchronized movement time and the scene music form. Let's look at the entry part. Different vocal parts enter with the same music form, forming a sequential superposition of 1, 2, 3, 4 vocal parts vertically. The gathering part, the 4 voices move in the same form at the same point in time. Dissipating part, the four vocal parts gradually exit. The fourth movement, there are 19 4 bars. Taking a holistic view, it seems that from the fourth movement, the climax of the entire work is the musical trio or succession will start from here. If the first 3 movements are dominated by the display of hazy acoustics, the fourth movement highlights the flow of the music in the horizontal voices, sometimes chasing each other and sometimes entwining with each other in an intertwined relationship. The pitch material is mainly reflected in 2 different vocal layers, which is changed from the 4-part presentation in the previous 3 movements, reflecting a more prominent change and contrast. The rhythm are sparse and 2 dense, with mixed meter forming different rhythmic relationship. The last movement, before we see this picture, the composer himself mentioned about this movement. He said, the idea of writing the movement covers the technical means of composition used in recent years, from clear to blurred, with different visual perceptions, as well as auditory. The reception of the more than 408 notes in the work reflects the process of harmonic variation. In this process, the listener is left to feel for themselves once the moment changed. As mentioned by the composer, in this work, the composer uses isochronous rhythmic relationships to create a gradual harmonic coloration by using subtle changes in the local pitch elements in the reception bass chord movement. This sub-pitch change can also play an effective role in changing the pitch structure and acoustic corner within the 24-tone equal temperament range. Moving on the next slide, I will be discussing about induction and exploration. Induction and exploration of composition technology for orderly superposition. This refers to superimposition of music materials in a circle order of sequence. In Diary 5, the orderly superimposition of music materials is one of the main features of the work. This is demonstrated by the following. 1. Orderly superposition of sound parts. 2. Orderly stacking of pitch materials. For 1, in the first to fourth movements, the movement time of all parts is reflected as an orderly process from non-synchronous to synchronous. Look at this picture. This example is the beginning of the third movement, where it can be clearly observed that the 4 voices are superimposed in a circle order, a certain order, reflecting an orderly process from non-synchronous to synchronous during the movement. For 2, orderly stacking of pitch materials. In the fifth movement, it can be clearly seen that through the superimposition of pitch material, it creates a gradual sound effect. Like the example shows, The first piano, while maintaining the chord form as a composition of the five pitch elements, the superimposed by the second piano, which adds pitch elements in order that differ by a quarter tone, creating a subtle, orderly, gradual sound effect. Moving on next slide, I will talk about the application of polyphonic technology for imitation relationship. The orderly superimposed voices part relationship, they enter sequentially, meaning in imitation. The four voices from multiple imitative relationships through the design of voice part superimposition and complex rhythms. Like the example shows, this example is beginning of the second movement, viewed with a holistic perspective. Two pianos form an imitation with a pitch relationship of the quarter tone difference. Then, the part more philology of the two pianos were observed from the local perspective. It can be clearly find the first part and the second part, as well as the third part and the fourth part from the rhythm imitation relationship. For concealed polyphony, the work Diary 5 is performed with one player playing two pianos, meaning that each hand can only play one piano. It should be noted that because of the relatively narrow range of the piano played with one hand, the composer, while writing, sought use the polyphonic technique, using linear progressing with horizontal melody allows for more varied expression of the work in the limited sonic space. This example score is selected from the first movement in the top score table. The seemingly monophonic melody moves laterally, but in fact, it has two parts in a linear way, thus forming a hidden part relationship. Now I'm going to discuss rhythm 4. For complex rhythm in a single pitch. In this piece, we can see monophonic forms everywhere. These single pitches are arranged through the complex rhythmic that allows music to gain forward momentum. As this example shows, a score is also taken from the first movement, where the composer used single page material to form an extension of the work through complex rhythmic combinations. For the superdivision in rhythm imitation, let's look at this picture. This example score is taken from the second movement. The rhythm construction of the work seems complicated, but in fact, it takes two beats as a rhythm pattern, forming another rhythm subdivision relationship. The specific design arrangement is mainly based on the quarter note movement. By using the time different part entry, the original metrical accent relationship is blurred in the rhythmic imitation relationship, creating an ethereal acoustic effect. Moving on next slide, I will be discussing about the sound corner. Before that, I want to say if the goal of this work is to highlight the harmony effect of the quarter tone, and what exactly the difference of the quarter tone in terms of the sound effects, I will explain the phenomenon of beat frequency in physical acoustics. When two music when two musical notes with similar frequencies are sounded at the same time, a sound with flatter can be heard through the beat frequency method. The beat frequency sometimes makes the instrument's articulation produce a fluttering effect, making the sound full. Auditory perceptions as fluctuation in height and in density.
Excuse me, Yue, 3 minutes left.
3 minutes left? Oh, I have many things to do, so I just show this in my screen and I won't read it. So please, everyone can see it in my screen. Okay, and I will do an experiment. This is the lower number, lower frequency. And next is the faster frequency. And high is the frequency. Okay, we can hear that, and then I will show you in my screen. So if you have any questions, you can ask me. Before I ended that, and this is my conclusion. So because I have no time, so this is the end of my presentation, and thank you everyone for listening. Thank you. 他说没有时间呢。Hello?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm so sorry that's something wrong with my net.
Congratulations. Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, I will. Thank you.
It was a quick one.
And,
Can I stop the share the screen?
yes, or otherwise I can do it, or you can do it yourself.
Okay. Wait me minute. Yes,
Okay.
it's now.
Thank you very much, Yue. I'm sorry I had to interrupt, so that we have at least a few minutes for the questions.
But we have a good impression.
Yes. Do you have maybe a little bit of the recording that we can listen to?
Oh, I have. Yes,
maybe
I can.
1 minute, one little example. Is it possible?
Yes, but I don't. I'm not sure you will listen it, but I will play it now. Please
Okay.
wait a second.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay. Wait a second. There are five movements, so I want to show you in a short time. This is the first movement.
First.
You hear it? To stop here, I want to share my screen, and you can see the score.
Ah, great.
Okay. Now you can see score. Hello, can you see it?
Yes.
And I will play it. This is the first movement.
Okay, thank you, Yue. That we have at least 5 minutes for some more questions.
Okay.
Yeah, it sounds very effective. Are there any questions from the group?
Okay. Well, I'm not sure.
Okay, anyone, any question? Otherwise, we can ask. I can ask you also. Do you have? For me, I was trying to write the tuning of the two pianos. So the first one is a completely normal piano. The first piano is completely normal. 12 division.
The first piano is normal piano, and the second piano is the quarter tone piano.
Okay, in 24 divisions, and
no, it's the same, but with 452.
Okay, yeah. So it's a normal piano, just tuned a quarter tone higher.
Yes.
Okay, I was not sure. And about the disposition of the player, do you have a picture of the piano player playing? Because
yes, I have the picture, and
is it possible that you show us?
I show you in my screen. I can show you again.
Thank you.
I can show you again.
I wonder that
yes,
two
can you see my?
On the
Can you see this?
There was one player.
It's one piano
and two manuals.
Okay. It's the one pianist to play the two piano.
Okay. Yes. You put it at the beginning. I didn't pay attention.
No, there are two pianos.
Yes.
One was tuned a quarter tone higher, and that's one piano, like Alois Haber used.
Yes. It's much better this way. Yeah. Because sometimes I know pieces. I mean, myself, I wrote pieces where you have one piano and then one piano. Or I saw also pieces that you have those opposite from each other. And I didn't see this picture properly at the beginning. Yeah, thank you very much. And we still have 3 minutes for questions. Anyone, any comments, any questions from the group?
Yeah, before I leave, I want to stop the sharing the screen.
Yes.
Maybe I have a question. Maybe why quarter tones specifically and not another kind of equal temperament?
That's well.
Can you speak slowly? I'm not sure I understand.
I mean, why you choose the 24 equal temperament and not another kind of equal temperament?
Oh yes, because I think it's the individual. It's the first of all, it's based on the two pianos, and another second piano is the quarter tone. So I think it's the 24 tone equal temperament. Every pitch is equal.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Totally equal.
Thank you.
Okay. By the way, can you maybe stop sharing your screen?
Okay.
Yue?
No problem.
No problem.
Yes. No problem.
Yeah. And we still have 2 more minutes for maybe a last question from anyone.
Yeah.
Interested in the polyphonic technique, really, the isorhythm, the imitation, and the kind of beating effects within the music.
What? Sorry again. Pardon. Sorry.
The polyphonic techniques and the composition, the isorhythm, the imitation, and the beating effects.
Yes. Yes.
So is the composer, is that his style, or is that just sort of one-off for this particular piece?
Maybe Sorry, I'm not sure I understand your meaning. So if you have any more questions, you can contact with me in English. Maybe I can answer your questions. I'm so sorry.
Okay. Okay.
Maybe I can interrupt and give a little support of the ideas of my dear friend Xiaoyong Chen.
Great.
Yes, came from the Ligeti class, and we discussed a lot about quarter tones, about ecmelic music, about Harry Parch, and so on. And Xiaoyong really very much worked with Gucheng and the little Chin he has at home, and all these intermediate tones, these microtones they interest him very, very much. But I think this piece is a kind of exception. He very seldom wrote quarter tone music, as far as I know. Am I right? I don't know any other piece in quarter tones of his.
I think so. I never know it before. So this is the only piece I know he used in quarter tone.
Yes, me too. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Yes. Thank you very much, Yue Xiao, for your presentation.
Thank you everyone. Thank you everyone.
Very, very nice one. And we shall continue now with Matthew Sallis, and he sent me actually his presentation. So I will try to share now with you. Okay, I'm the one sharing screen. Share screen. So this one, I guess. And before that, I'm preparing this, but before this, I'd like to say a presentation and introduction about Matthew Sallis. So Matthew Sallis is going to present us Reconfiguring Pythagorean tuning. Matthew studied for a B, or as he wrote it, I studied for a BA in Performing Arts at the Royal Welsh College of Music. I specialized in classical guitar with John Mills and had master's classes with Carlos Bonnell, Neil Smith, and John Williams. I studied for an MA in composition at Huddersfield University. As a classical guitarist, I performed recitals through the United Kingdom. I studied for a PhD in composition at the University of Liverpool, graduating in December 2017. I have composed commissions, including music for the centenary video of Ness Gardens. I was shortlisted for LAHCSC competition in 2018 and 2019. I received an honorable mention for rhythm and invention for solo piano at the Rodrigo Landa Romero Composition Competition 2020. Guitar Sonata 1 was selected for the International 21st Century Guitar Conference in Lisbon, Portugal, in March this year. Other compositions include Mutation of Agnus Dei, performed by the RLPO Composers Public Concert, Liverpool, on the 6th of June 2016. Mutation of Kiri, performed by Bristol Ensemble at RMA Composers Day in Bristol, January 2015. Sanctus, performed by the 16 at Liverpool in May 2017. Mutation of Sanctus, performed by LCCO, Southwark, London, in March 2016. My academic research includes Xenakis symbolic music, the style of Palestrina, and music of Platonism. The following papers were given at conferences: Rhythm and Absolute Time at TAX conference in 2010, Bangor University Music Department, April 2010. Towards a Universal Theory of Music from Ideas of Xenakis Symbolic Music, NWMEC conference at Bangor University Department, March 2013, Gödel, Plato, Xenakis, Symbolic Music and Numbers at RMA Music and Mathematics Study Day, Leeds University, April 2014. So I will play in my screen.
Pythagoras of Samos was an ancient Greek philosopher, mathematician, and mystic. To begin this lecture, I would like to demonstrate how the mathematics, philosophy, and mysticism of Pythagoras gave rise to the tuning system that bears his name. This diagram shows the famous Pythagorean tetractys, which has the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4 arranged in an equilateral triangle. The tetractys demonstrates the Pythagorean belief that the universe was made up of numbers. The number 10 is a triangular number in which 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 equals 10. Thus, the tetractys contains the ratios needed to produce a musical scale, 2 to 1 being the octave, 3 to 2 a perfect fifth, and 4 to 3 a perfect fourth. The mystical philosophy of Pythagoras that states the universe is controlled by numbers may be perfectly illustrated using the monochord. The monochord has a fundamental string through the middle with another string on top with a movable bridge. If I place the bridge halfway down the string to give a ratio of 2 to 1, we get the musical interval of the octave. If I move the bridge to 2/3 of the string length, we get the musical interval of the perfect fifth. If I move the bridge to 3/4 of the string length, we get the interval of the perfect fourth. If we imagine a perfectly vibrating string that can sound all of its overtones, the first overtone would be the octave. This octave overtone would have its own overtone of an octave, etc. For the fifth overtones, the second overtone would be an octave plus a fifth. This overtone would itself have an overtone of an octave plus a fifth, etc. Pythagorean intervals may be formed as the product of the naturally occurring fifth and octave overtones of the harmonic series. A Pythagorean interval has the form 2 to the power of A over 3 to the power of C, or 3 to the power of B over 2 to the power of D, where A, B, C, D are integers or 0. The following table shows the Pythagorean intervals that are used to produce my scale. The minor second is given by the ratio 2 to the power of 8 over 3 to the power of 5. The major second, 3 to the power of 2 over 2 to the power of 3. The minor third, 2 to the power of 5 over 3 to the power of 3. The major third, 3 to the power of 4 over 2 to the power of 6. The perfect fourth, 2 to the power of 2 over 3 to the power of 1. The augmented fourth, 3 to the power of 6 over 2 to the power of 9. And the perfect fifth, basically 3 over 2. Two quick examples of how to calculate these intervals are as follows. A perfect fifth is the difference between an octave and a fifth, and an octave, that is to say 3 divided by 2. A major second is the difference between 2 perfect fifths and an octave, that is to say 3 over 2 to the power of 2 times 1/2. Number theory tells us that all integers may be expressed as a product of prime numbers. Thus, I equals prime 1 to the power of A times prime 2 to the power of B times prime 3 to the power of C, etc. I is an integer, P1, etc. are prime numbers, A, B, C, etc. are integers. Example 1 shows that 360 is equal to 2 to the power of 3 times 3 to the power of 2 times 5 to the power of 1. Example 2 shows that 2,400 is equal to 2 to the power of 5 times 3 to the power of 1 times 5 to the power of 2. The numbers 2 and 3 are said to be relatively prime. The only common factor is 1. Thus, there is no ratio 2 to the power of A over 3 to the power of C, or 3 to the power of B over 2 to the power of D that corresponds to the ratio 2 to 1 or its compound. Since the numbers 2 and 3 are themselves prime numbers, if we increase the powers of 2 from, say, 2 to the power of 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, and we did the same to the powers of 3, we would not introduce any new factors, merely more 2's and 3's. This means that there is no fraction 2 to the power of A over 3 to the power of B, or 3 to the power of C over 2 to the power of D that corresponds to the ratio 2 over 1. This fact gives rise to the Pythagorean comma, which is the difference between enharmonic notes. If we cycled round a circle of fifths to end up on B sharp, this would be equivalent to 3 over 2 raised to the power of 12, which is slightly sharper than 7 octaves. The note C, which would be given by 2 raised to the power of 7. Thus, the Pythagorean comma is equivalent to 3 to the power of 12 over 2 to the power of 19, an interval corresponding to approximately 23.46 cents. The Pythagorean comma and the lack of equivalence between enharmonic notes has had profound implications for the tuning systems used throughout musical history. Musical theorists have used various methods to temper the basic Pythagorean scale so that it remains in tune when the music modulates to remote keys. For example, our modern equal temperament tuning has each semitone exactly the same ratio, the 12th root of 2. I have become increasingly frustrated with the bland mechanical sound of equal temperament tuning. Thus, I have tried to produce a scale which gives me the pure sound of the Pythagorean intervals, but remains in tune as much as possible as I modulate to remote key areas. Whilst I very much admire and enjoy listening to the music of complex composers such as Brian Fernyhough, James Dillon, Elliot Carter, etc., I have come to regard such music as like white noise. It has a chaotic surface, but lacks deep structure. It has no musical syntax or semantics. To a certain extent, my compositional style resets the dial on musical theory to explore a kind of postmodern, post-tonal, polyphonic style. This is an attempt to produce music that has deep structures, that has syntax and semantics. Since my music explores the fundamental relationships between notes in terms of intervals and harmony, I am increasingly frustrated with the bland, mechanical equal temperament tuning. Thus, I am trying to develop a tuning system which has the smooth, pure-sounding Pythagorean ratios, but stays in tune as much as possible when I modulate to remote key areas. The method I used to produce my scale is very simple. I took a starting note and applied the Pythagorean ratios described earlier, corresponding to the minor second, the major second, the minor third, etc., up to the interval of the perfect fifth. From this perfect fifth, I then reapplied the same ratios up to another perfect fifth, and then repeated this process to give me the scale. Logic tells me that as I modulate to each new key area in the circle of fifths, the intervals will more or less stay in tune with the original Pythagorean intervals. As the scale progresses upwards in pitch, certain ratios are a whole amount of the Pythagorean comma out of tune with the original Pythagorean ratios. There are no enharmonic notes in my scale, just approximations for various pitches. This diagram shows how the scale was generated. The scale was designed to tune a standard 6-string guitar. After trial and error, I decided the best starting pitch was an F, the first fret on the 6th string or the top string of the guitar. This corresponds to a pitch of 85.33 Hertz. The ratio column shows whether the increase is by a diatonic or chromatic semitone. The fraction column shows the increase in terms of a Pythagorean interval. The cents column shows the increase in pitch measured in cents. I would appeal to the musical community, the performers, the composers, the music theorists, to reject equal temperament tuning with its mechanical outlook and its attempt to control nature. I would like to see the rewilding of music, a sort of musical ecology which restores as many different tuning systems as possible. For general musical usage, I would advocate something like my scale as a standard, but solo performers like guitarists or pianists or string quartets could employ a variety of tuning systems even within one recital. This would reintroduce variety in the tuning systems that we use and would work with nature, not against nature. The scale that I have shown you is perfect for my own uses in my postmodern post-tonal polyphony. Each octave transposition brings with it a slightly altered set of ratios, a new sound, a new flavor. The same is true when you modulate to different key areas. The first piece I composed using my scale was a quartet for 4 guitars entitled New Tuning. This piece uses a slightly different version of the scale that I showed you today and uses a reference pitch of A at 440 Hertz. I tuned the 6 open strings of the 4 guitars to a different note of the scale and used these notes to compose the piece. The piece modulates to remote key areas, but more or less sounds in tune in these remote key areas. This is an extract of a piece I am working on at the moment called Sallissian Tuned Guitar 1. To realize the piece, I recorded each individual note of the scale into Logic Pro and used Logic Pro like a sampler to realize the music. Eventually, I will orchestrate the piece for a solo guitar using just open strings and harmonics with no fretted notes. Sallissian Tuned Guitar 1 uses the scale that I've shown you today with a reference pitch of A at 432 Hertz. I chose this reference frequency because 432 is equal to 2 to the power of 4 times 3 to the power of 3, which seems Pythagorean in nature. showed my scale there when used for the performance of historical music. For music up to the early 16th century, this would be no problem, since my scale is essentially a Pythagorean scale. For music from the early 16th to the early 17th century, the out of tune notes in my scale approximate to mean tone just intonation. Thus, I predict most music from this period would sound absolutely fine in my scale, given the limited modulations you find in such music. For the playback of Queen Elizabeth, Her Galliard by John Dowland, I used Logic Pro like a sampler in a similar fashion to Sallis Tuned Guitar 1. I chose this particular piece because it is quite chromatic and passes through E major, E minor, and G major. This diagram shows how the intervals of the Pythagorean scale may be expressed as a sum of diatonic and chromatic semitones. Thus, the minor second is a diatonic semitone, the major second is a diatonic plus a chromatic semitone, the minor third is 2 diatonic plus 1 chromatic semitone, etc. The nature of my scale is such that each key will be perfectly in tune in at least 1 octave transposition. Therefore, to give a representative example of how in tune or out of tune various keys are, I have shown the keys from C3 to C4. The black notes are in tune and the red notes are out of tune with the original scale. Whilst the previous diagram did contain a lot of red, this diagram shows significant notes out of tune with the original scale. As you can see, you could happily modulate to most keys without having to worry about being out of tune with the original scale. Since my scale is not in any way tempered, even the so-called out-of-tune notes are Pythagorean intervals and thus would be part of the naturally occurring overtone series. Thus, rather than out of tune, the note would merely sound different in quality to the original scale. This diagram shows the altered ratios for the key of C sharp. The altered ratios are still Pythagorean ratios and, as I said before, would simply have a different quality to the original scale. For music written in the early 17th century through to the end of the classical period, this may prove more problematic when played in my scale, given that some of the octaves are out of tune in various octave transpositions. However, I would still predict that most music would sound absolutely fine when performed in my scale. To realize this famous Bore by Bach, I used Logic Pro in a similar fashion to the other pieces. I chose this particular Bore because it is very chromatic in nature. It uses all 12 semitones. tonal music of the 19th and 20th century, written in equal temperament tuning, would not sound so good when performed in my scale. It just so happens this is a musical period that I very rarely ever listen to. Whilst my scale does suffer from the usual problems associated with tuning systems based on Pythagorean intervals, that is to say, out of tune octaves and remote keys being more out of tune than other keys, it does have the advantage that since no intervals are tempered, every interval is a Pythagorean interval and thus part of the naturally occurring overtone series. Pythagorean philosophy and mysticism demands that the scale be based on the ratio of the octave 2:1. However, I'm prepared to sacrifice Pythagorean mysticism for good musical practice. The octave is possibly the least interesting interval in the lexicon of musical intervals. It merely doubles a pre-existing pitch. Thus, if we abandon the attempt to keep octaves in tune, we have a circle of fifths which will preserve Pythagorean intervals, and thus all intervals will be part of the naturally occurring overtone series. Thank you for listening to this lecture, and many thanks to Augustine and the committee for organizing this conference. If you would like any of the charts and diagrams I have shown, please get in touch via email or Facebook and I can send them to you. If you would like to critique what I have said today and suggest improvements, please get in touch. If you would like to talk about anything whatsoever, if you would like to talk about the weather, please get in touch. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Matthew. Congratulations for this great presentation. I don't know if in the group we should go to the first break in 1 minute, but because of this, I wasn't able to make the sound work. I'd like to ask in the group if anyone has any questions for Matthew's presentation. Hans Günther?
Just a simple question. Can you imagine that you would let refret a guitar to your scale, that you have a real guitar instead of this electronic realizations?
That's the plan long term. Yep. In fact, I've even got the diagram to do that. So that'll be what I'll be working on next. Yep.
Well, very much looking forward to it. It's really a lot of work. I mean, you're very passionate with this work for us to be able to listen to this beautiful music. I don't know if there's another question in the group. Otherwise, I'm also curious about something. Or Johannes, any questions? Anyone?
Can I?
Okay, sure.
Can I just? Why you don't use these microtonal guitars Torgahan presented the last years? So there you would have these removable frets, and you could just so you wouldn't have this crazy sound of these MIDI files, and it would sound way more natural and nicer. It would be pretty easy, probably.
Yeah, that would definitely be a plan long term. Yep.
Because they already exist, there are a lot of guitars like this, so would be super easy to do.
That's definitely the plan long term.
Yes, and Matthew, I mean, this solo composition, this Sallisian tuned guitar one, I'm very curious. I mean, it sounds amazing with these metal strings. Why did you choose acoustic guitar instead of classical with nylon or composite strings?
Just for practical reasons, that the guitar I practice on normally, you know yourself from playing the guitar, if you detune the strings frequently, it doesn't keep its pitch. So but also because eventually I'll orchestrate it for overtones and open strings. Mm-hmm. Metal strings seem to have louder and more prominent overtones when you do the harmonic.
Yes, I thought so, but yeah, I wanted to ask you anyway. You're the composer.
Yeah, those two reasons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you very much. Any more questions from the group? Otherwise, okay, thank you very much, Matthew. Congratulations. And so I would suggest that we are just 2 minutes late, that we continue the second block of conferences. We continue this 3:30 Austrian time in 27 minutes now. Okay, see you later, everyone.